Header and footer. The header and footer elements are basically the exact same, except for the obvious change in element name. In fact, it's quite similar to the div element too. HTML5 introduced these new elements to help describe the DOM. So instead of one parent having 10 children, one parent can have 2 children, and each child can have 5 children of their own. So why is this beneficial? Well, for the reader or the user or your viewer, it's not beneficial. But it's not bad for them either. If anything, it will help search engines become more accurate in the future. Let's say you're looking for contact information for a local company. They would put their information inside the address element, and a search engine could find it more easily and accurately. Now that is beneficial for the viewer. Now let's look at the header element. When would you use the header element? Well, you'd use it anywhere you'd use a header. You can use the header as a banner or logo section for the top of your website. You can use a header in the title of a post that you made on your blog. You can even use a header to group a small section of content together to help form the title section of an area on your website. You can have more than one header in your page. However, you cannot have a header inside a header. Now moving on to the footer. You'd use the footer in the same way you'd use a header. Footer should be put at the bottom of a blog post. You know where the posted by or contact information would go. You can also use a footer at the end of your page and add a copyright, links or terms of service or your policy guideline, etc. And again, you cannot put a footer inside another footer. However, you can have more than one footer on every page. So if we take a look at a quick example here, just to show you how the header and footer could work, we have the entire page HTML here. We have our head, and we have our body. And inside our body, we put the header, which is a block element, by the way, and it will take up the entire block going from left to right, and that's where you could put your logo or your banner, your title of your page or your blog. We put the div in here, and this is where you would put some content. I just gave it the idea of my content. And then you have your footer. And your footer is where you could put your contact, your terms of service, your policy, your copyright, or anything else that you think should be in your footer. If you open that code in your browser, you actually won't see anything. Like I said, it does not affect the viewer, but you, the developer, have now created nice looking code that is organized and it helps maintain a healthy DOM. Once we get into CSS and JavaScript, you'll find that a clean DOM will actually help you out. Now let's look at some other elements that are basically the same thing as header and footer. We have section, nav, which is navigation, area, and article. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, or if any element changes in the future, but section, nav, area, and article pretty much do the same thing as header and footer. Now they're pretty self-explanatory. Nav is your navigation, where you'd put your links so people can travel around your website. Area is just used for general grouping. Article is where you would put an article, such as a blog post. And section is where a section of your content goes. For example, you could put an article inside of a section, and that would still be correct. Like I said earlier, HTML5 has made a pretty good attempt to remove the div tag from existence. And with all of these, you can actually stop using the div element. However, many people still love the div, and that's because it's simple, it's supported by all the older browsers, and it does everything that these new elements do. And on top of that, it doesn't need a long fancy name.